Hey guys, and welcome back to Baddie and a Book. My name is Gabby and today we have a book haul. So I have a little bit of everything in this book haul. I have stuff from secondsale.com, Books A Million, the thrift store. I bought some brand new. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. First thing that I picked up was the series. I read the series when I was in high school and I remember reading it and loving it. I only read the first book in the series. I didn't get a chance to read the rest of them, but like I said, I remember having them and having the first book and absolutely loving the first book, so I thought I would go ahead and pick it up again, and that is the Ugly series by Scott Westerfield. And these are the exact same copies that I had. I saw someone selling these on eBay for like $10 for the set, so I got a steal for these most definitely, especially with them having the new covers out now. The new covers, they look so much better than these, but these have a little bit more of a nostalgic feel to them because these are the same books, or this is the same edition that I read when I was younger. The next book that I picked up is called A Girl Like You by Carrie Scribner. Now, I don't know a whole lot about this book, but I did pick this up from Goodwill. The cool thing about this book is it actually came with a bookmark as well, which I thought was nice. I know that this is about an older woman. I believe it might be a contemporary adult fiction. But I didn't, needless to say, pick this up, and I'm gonna go into reading this one blindly, so I'm excited about that. The next two books that I picked up is by Miss Farrah Rokan. But I got the Dating Playbook and the Boyfriend Project. Now these are the first two out of the three. The third one just recently came out here, so I'm excited to pick that one up eventually. But for now, I just have the first two. Both of these two are single POV. They are romance novels. Now this book, I believe the primary character in this one is Samaya, and then the primary character in this one is Taylor. Both of these two have the same exact characters. I think we're just following a different friend in the friend group, but this one has cheating in it. It has workplace romance in it. This one has fake dating and also like some type of football or sports romance in it as well. So I'm really excited to pick these ones up. I've seen really mixed reviews about these two, so I'm excited to see what I think about them. And again, I am really excited for those. The next one that I picked up is a classic. It's an international classic. It is called I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. This one is a thrifted version, so it is a little bit more pre-loved, and I do eventually want to pick up her entire book collection. I'm going to put a picture of what I'm talking about here. There is an entire book collection of hers on Amazon, but it's kind of expensive, so I found this one at my local thrift store. I believe it was like $1 or $2, and I am really excited to have at least this one. If you're gonna start with any Maya Angelou book, I've heard that this one is the best one to start with, and I think this is one of her more popular ones, so I'm really excited about that. The next book that I picked up is another adult romance. This one is called A Low Country Bride by Priscilla Williams. This one takes place in South Carolina. The main character, Maya, she starts off living in New York City, and then she ends up having to go back home to her hometown in South Carolina because her dad got injured, and so she's there taking care of him. There's a romance that arises from there, and I'm really excited to read this one. I haven't heard a whole lot about this one. This one is one that is kind of like, it's not really as talked about as some of the other books, but I'm really excited to pick this one up and have something different in my collection of books. Now, this would not be a book haul without me mentioning Miss Danielle Steel. I don't want to necessarily collect all of her books because I want to say she has like over 100, 200 books, and that's just not the move. But I do want to eventually collect as many books from her as possible. So I picked up 5 Days in Paris and The Gift by Danielle Steel. Both of these I got thrifted, and mind you, these were both in the 90s. These were published in the 90s, and these were only like $15. Nowadays, hardback books are like $30, so anyways, but I have no idea what these two are about. These are shorter books in comparison to some of her other books that I have, but I really loved the covers of these two. These are definitely giving 90s. The covers are definitely giving just that. Next author that I picked up, now this is an author particularly that I do eventually want to pick up all of her books at some point, and I picked up both of these actually from secondsale.com. Out of all of the online thrifting book websites, Secondsale Sale seems to be, at least in my experience, the most consistent with their book qualities, or the book conditions matching what is actually listed on the website. I've had some hit or misses with thrift books where they'll list something as very good and the condition of the book is actually not very good. I haven't had not anything that comes to my mind of that experience with Second Sale, but I ended up picking up two books by Kristin Hannah. This one is called The Summer Island and this one is called The Things We Do for Love. It seems like her niche seems to be historical, contemporary, and also some romance as well. So I've never heard of these two. These are actually new finds for me because I think I had when I was younger Firefly Lane, On Mystic Lake, and a few other ones. So I'm excited to have these two to add to my collection of hers. She will be definitely an author that I will be picking up all of her books eventually. Now the next set of books, I actually ended up going to Books-A-Million every time that I'm on the East Coast because I don't have a Books-A-Million anywhere near me where I'm at. So every time I go back to the East Coast, I always end up stopping by a Books-A-Million in the area and picking up books from them. Books-A-Million ends up replacing my trips from Barnes & Noble, so I usually go to Books-A-Million when I'm on the East Coast because not only are their prices overall cheaper, but they also have a really huge bargain section, at least at the location that I typically go to. So I really enjoy that. And they don't have just like random books in their inventory for the bargain section. They actually have some newer releases, some popular books, some books that have been on BookTube and everything. Barnes & Noble, they do have, sometimes they will have like a bargain section. I've noticed that at least where I'm at, it depends on the location on whether or not they actually have this section where they have books for, I think it's like $5, $6, $7, and $10, I believe are the price ranges. But again, it just varies by location, at least in my experience. The first book that I picked up from Books-A-Million is called Slay by Brittany Morris. Now this one is a YA. I think all of the books that I picked up from Books-A-Million this go around are YA, but this one follows a young character by the name of Kiera. I think most YA books are coming of age, but this one is a coming of age story. She is a video game developer, but the thing is nobody around her knows, even her closest family members, her friends, even her boyfriend, none of them know that she is a video game developer and her game is called Slay. That's where the title comes from. But essentially there is a murder that happens that's affiliated with the game. Either like something happened on the game that just things got escalated in real life and a murder was done by that, or I'm not really 100% sure, but there is a murder in connection with the video game Slay. Now, like I said, nobody in her family or anybody close to her knows that she is the video game developer of this game called Slay. So she created this world in Slay that was separate from the real world, a world where she could merely just be herself and not have to pretend to be anybody that she isn't and all of that. So we follow her on her journey to try to protect the world that she has created online and also protect her identity while she faces obstacles like potentially getting sued, people trying to reveal her identity because again nobody knows who she is. So I thought that that would be a very interesting premise and something new that I have never heard of before. The next two books are just merely cover buys, so I have no idea what these two are about, but they were in the bargain section, so I thought I would go ahead and pick them up. This one is called The Way You Make Me Feel by Maureen Gu, and then this one is called Always Never Yours by Emily Wibberley and Austin Siegmund Broca. Again, I don't really know what these two are about, but they're pretty straightforward. I believe this one is a YA romance. The girl in this one I believe is in her junior year in high school, and then this one, to be honest, I think it might just be a coming of age story, but I'm not entirely too sure. But the covers are absolutely beautiful on these two. That's what happens when I go to Books-A-Million in the bargain section. The books end up being only like $3 to $5. Sometimes they're like $7 or $8 depending on the book. But because they are so cheap, I usually just end up throwing all of them in my bag. I'm just like... The next book that I picked up is called So Be It by Sarah Weeks. This one is also a coming of age story, a self-discovery story. We're following a young girl by the name of Heidi, and she doesn't know anything about her father. He hasn't been in the picture, and then her mom is mentally disabled. So she kind of goes on this journey to try to kind of find herself and connect the pieces of her life, her parents, her family, and her history to try to find out who she is. So we're following her on that journey. This one is a really short book, and like there's really not a whole lot of text on each individual page, so I'm sure I'm gonna fly by in this book, but I thought that that was very interesting. Next book that I picked up is called Done Dirt Cheap by Sarah Nicole Lemon. This one was also a cover buy. I do know that this one is surrounding friendship, so we have two main girls. It is single POV, even though there are two main characters. I'm not sure exactly who we are following, but we are only getting a single POV in this particular book, and they are supposed to be enemies just based on their families. Their families are enemies, so like they've kind of been sent to each other to continue to be enemies, but they end up actually becoming really close and having a lot more in common than they think, and they end up actually becoming friends. I know that one of the girls, her family is like a biker club, a biker vibe going on in her family, so I thought that that was very interesting. And again, this was just a very beautiful cover, and it was in the bargain section. The next book that I picked up is called The Edge of Never by J.A. Redmersky. The cover is absolutely stunning. She's a little bit of a thickie. I don't think this one is a YA. I think this one is an adult romance, but this one follows 20-year-old Cameron. Essentially, she packs up all her shit. She's like, I'm gonna create a new life somewhere else. Spur of the moment, very spontaneous. Love that for her. Then she ends up meeting Andrew, which ends up becoming the love of her life, but then there are some secrets that arise that could potentially tear them apart. So I've heard really good things about this. I did some research while I was in the store on this particular book. It was only $4, so I was like, I'm taking this one. This one seems really good. Then the very last book that I picked up from Books A Million this go around is called Nothing Left to Burn by Heather Ezel. Now this one is very interesting because this one follows a girl by the name of Audrey, I believe. Yeah, Audrey. So this one follows Audrey, and essentially it takes place in California. It is a YA, so she's like 16 or 17 years old, and it takes place in California around the time of wildfires. So one of the bigger things about this particular book is it takes place within a 24-hour time period after she discovers that her area that she lives in is about to be taken over by the wildfires. Now, with that being said, I like that the book essentially, it sounds like it starts with the fire department knocking on their front door saying, hey, the fires are coming, you guys have to evacuate. So we're following her like throughout that entire 24 hours. One thing I really like about the book is that every chapter has like a timestamp in there for where they're at during the day. So I thought that that would be interesting, and I've never heard of a book with this particular premise, so I thought that that would be a really interesting read. It's a YA, so it's not going to take me very long to read. The next set of books that I picked up, I've actually been really getting into buying books from the Dollar Tree, only because their inventory aren't necessarily like random ass books that nobody wants to read. That might be the case in terms of like some of the random ones that we get, but a lot of times when you go, or at least when I've gone to my local Dollar Trees, I have a ton in my area, so I just go to different locations and I'm actually able to find a lot of really interesting books. I think that either just are overstocked, kind of like Book Outlet, or maybe they're just not selling, so they end up getting them over to the Dollar Tree, and then the Dollar Tree sells them there for $1.25. The thing with the Dollar Tree is that like you're only spending $1.25 on these books that are originally like $20 and up, and if you don't like them, worst case scenario is that you can always give them to a little library or donate them. So I usually end up, if they're a cover buy or they even look precisely or even in the smallest bit interesting, I'll just pick them up because they're only $1.25. So I have two books. These were merely a cover buy. The first one is called When I Was Summer by J.B. Howard, and then the second one is called The Lightness of Hands by Jeff Garvin. I have no idea what these two are about. I just know that these two are YA books. Dollar Tree, they do have sometimes some adult books, but most of the time it is YA that ends up in at least the local Dollar Trees that are near me. So I picked up those two. And now these second two, so this one is called Imagine Us Happy by Jennifer Yu. This one is a YA. It is a romance novel. The main character, she's in her junior year. Yeah, she's in her junior year of high school, and she is facing a little bit of depression and kind of struggling with that until she meets a character by the name of Kevin. He is also, I think he's a year older than her. Yes, so he is a senior by the name of Kevin, and they kind of hit it off. She's able to distract herself from her depression that she had been dealing with. And then as they, you know, become closer and closer and their relationship starts to develop even more, Kevin, his secrets and his traumas start to kind of surface themselves, and then hers also resurface. So they're kind of butting heads at this point, and they're essentially, we're following the journey of, or they're following the story of whether or not they want to, you know, kind of work through it, or if they want to part ways, with the amount of stress and amount of issues that are surfacing from both of their issues kind of clashing together at that point. So I like the cover of this one. Really interesting read. I hope it's going to be a really interesting read. And then the last book that I picked up from the dollar store, this one is actually the one that I'm most excited to read, just because this one sounds petty as hell. So this one is called Sam and Elsa's Last Hurrah by Rachel Cohn and David Levithan. Now this one, we're following Sam and Elsa. Now these two are twins, and it's a YA novel, so I think they're like teenagers, and essentially they have these dinner parties at their grandmother's apartment, and they're able to invite each 3 guests, and they don't have to tell each other, or they don't tell each other who these guests are. They just find out the day of the dinner. So in this case, I was reading the synopsis, and one of the components in the synopsis was stating that like exes were one of the guests for them. So I'm assuming that one of them invited the other's ex, and they're inviting them to this dinner party, and it just sounds like it's gonna be messy. It's a really, really short book, so I'm really excited to pick this one up here soon. And the crazy thing about it is that when I first picked up this book, I thought it was gonna be like a middle grade or a YA, like innocent, easygoing novel, maybe about like a birthday party or some shit like that. But I did not realize that there was going to be some pettiness in there, which is what it sounds like. So I'm hoping that this will be everything that I expect it to be. The next thrift find that I was able to get was from my local Goodwill. This one is called The Wedding Letters by Jason F. Wright. Now this one is a sequel. I did not know at the time of buying it, and it was a cover buy for me, because look at that. That is absolutely stunning. But I gotta pick up the first one before I can even start reading this one. So this one will probably be sitting on my shelf for a while until I can find the Wednesday Letters, which is the first book in that little series or duology or what have you. Now the last set of books that I picked up that I'm really excited to start reading here eventually are all books that were thrifted from my local Goodwill, and they're all books by Miss Sophie Kinsella. 3 of these are part of a series, and then the other 2 are standalones. So we're gonna start with the 2 that are standalones. So the first standalone from Miss Sophie Kinsella is called Remember Me. Now this one seems to be a very popular trope, more popular than I realized, because this isn't the first book that I've purchased that has this particular trope storyline to it. I didn't realize how popular it was. It's been done. I have quite a few books that actually follow the same similar plot line, and I'm sure I'll find more eventually in the future, just because I find them so often. But essentially this one follows a girl by the name of Lexi, I believe is what her name is. Yes. So this one follows a woman by the name of Lexi. This one is an adult contemporary romance, I believe. It's giving a love triangle potentially. But to get back to the plot of the story, it's one of those books where they wake up from an accident. She woke up from a really bad car accident, and she forgot the last 3 years of her life. And she comes to find out that she is married, and during this process of rediscovery of, you know, what her life was like for the last 3 years, and it sounds like she may be trying to reconnect with her husband and build that connection that they had before the accident. She also ends up meeting someone new that sparks her interest, and she ends up kind of developing feelings for as well. So that's where like that love triangle vibe comes from. But the whole waking up from an accident and for being forgetful or memory loss over the past 3, 5, 10 years, that seems to be a very common trope. The one thing with Sophie Kinsella that I've heard is that she's a very funny author, like she's very comedic. So I'm hoping that with her books that I have that experience, because her books seem to be all very lighthearted, easygoing, and also very funny from the reviews that I've seen, and also the little blurbs on each individual book. The next one is called The Wedding Night. Now this one follows 2 sisters. This one is giving 2 points of view. Yeah, this one is giving dual POV. This one follows a woman who is in her 30s. She just hit her 30s, and she is still single. It seems like she is seeing somebody in the beginning of the book, but then an old friend, an old person from her past. He could have either been an ex-boyfriend or maybe just a friend that she back then created a pact with, a marriage pact, that if by the time they were in their 30s, if they weren't married, that they were going to get married. And let me tell you, they're in their 30s and he is ready to complete that pact that they committed to so long ago. So the two sisters, it follows them. Lottie is the one that is involved in that marriage pact, and Fliss, which is the name of the other sister, which is such a weird name, but regardless, Fliss is the sister who is trying to prevent Lottie from committing to a potentially regretful decision to marry someone, because it was very impulsive. It was very kind of out the blue. So we're following them too on that journey. I'm hoping that there are some comedic elements to that book as well, because that would be something that could easily turn very funny. And then the last three books in the haul, and the last three books by Miss Sophie Kinsella, are part of the Shopaholics series. Now, I did not read the synopses of this book because I think these are part of a series. I think there's a lot of books in this particular series. I need to do more research to figure out if there is an order, if they're all standalones, because I think all of these follow the same characters or they're all in the same world. So I didn't read the synopses of these books, but they were in such mint condition that I ended up picking up all three of these. And then when I go to do some research later on, I'll figure out what other ones I need to buy, and then if I'm able to read these by themselves or if I have to go in a particular order. So those are the last three books. So yeah, those are the books that I picked up this go around. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.